everybody, so new review for you guys today. We're talking about the latest action sci-fi film, Gemini Man. So it's the ultimate battle of Will Smith versus Will Smith, directed by Ang Lee, who is a director I really enjoy some of his films. Obviously, he's done Brokeback Mountain, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Life of Pi. So I was really interested and curious to see why he tackles such a project, because if you weren't aware, this film has been kind of in development since 1997 with various names attached to it. And it's one of those movies where it was that weird time in Hollywood. It was like 1997 to like 2001, where they just had a lot of these movies where these action stars would face off against another version of themselves. Because you had several of them. You got like Jet Li in The One, and you also got The Sixth Day starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is kind of interesting because the plot of that movie also is very similar to Gemini Man. Unfortunately, those aren't films you really want to be lumped in with in the action sci-fi genre. Gemini Man really does have that 90s feel to it, which some could say would add to its appeal, but it's really 90s in all of the wrong ways. Because at the film's core, it centers around Henry Brogan, played by Will Smith. He's an aging hitman about to retire. There's government conspiracies involved, cloning technology, and they send one of the clones of Will Smith to go and kill him. And it's one of those cat and mouse kind of conspiracy movies in the action sci-fi genre. Nothing really new or groundbreaking to add to the endless supply of action films we get every year. There's just nothing to really keep you interested or invested in the story. We've all seen this kind of stuff before. It's just very generic. And it's like a 90s generic. It's not like 2019 generic. I really do wish the story was much more interesting, but there's just so many exposition dumps throughout the runtime to just pad it out between its very few far in between action set pieces that you really just kind of get bored, which is something you really don't like in an action movie, is to feel bored. Had they been spaced out better, it definitely would have helped with the pace a lot, but also just the dialogue for the film is really bad. I would probably maybe say like a first draft kind of bad. Some of the dialogue doesn't sound like dialogue you would hear people say, especially now. I mean, you can definitely tell at its core it's a very 90s script. That's not to say everything in this film is bad, though, because Will Smith is charismatic as ever. He's always going to try his best to do what he can with the limited material he's given. This time he's given limited material for two characters, as his original self and his clone self. But even then, they're still not really given too much depth to either character, but he's still trying to give a really good performance. I wish he would just pick better roles, because we've seen in the past that Will Smith can actually be a pretty good actor in comedies and dramas. He's just not really picking the best roles in the recent years, which is kind of sad to me as a longtime fan of Will Smith. I mean, the rest of the cast, they're kind of really just basic, standard, stilted supporting characters that don't really give a whole lot of room to do anything. You got Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Benedict Wong, Clive Owen's kind of like the villain in the background, kind of pulling the strings, but he's a very generic villain that doesn't get a whole lot of screen time for him being like the big bad of the movie. The de-aging effects on Will Smith are actually really spectacular. It's really amazing what they can do with technology now in de-aging people. Some of the best work I've seen outside of like the Disney stuff, whether it be Star Wars or the Marvel films, when it comes to the de-aging process, because they're doing a really good job and getting it really creepily like accurate to these actors, because this looked like literally like Will Smith from 90s, like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Men in Black era Will Smith. The thing is, though, is as the movie progressed, I don't know if it was just me or my eyes, but it seemed like as the film progressed, the CGI de-aging on Will Smith just got worse and worse. It was one of those weird things. I don't know if it was just my eyes, they just couldn't register the uncanny valleyness of the CGI, but towards the end of the movie, it just started to look really terrible, and it really kind of took me out of the film. That you can definitely tell he's a CGI character being de-aged, but I would say probably for the first 2/3 or so, it was relatively good. It was actually very amazing work. I'm curious to see where this technology goes in the future, how much more it's going to be used in other films. I also thought that the action scenes were done really well too, especially between the young and old Will Smith characters. It's just really interesting seeing this high frame rate. I believe it was 120 frames per second action scenes, especially this one motorcycle scene I'm sure you've seen in the trailers. Really weird with the frame rate. It's one of those things that I think that I'm just not ready for yet, maybe, because it looked a little video game-esque in some of those action scenes. It felt literally like I'm literally watching a video game cutscene. I don't think we're just ready yet for that kind of stuff, the 120 frames per second. If you're going to check out this film anyway, like to see it in like the highest thing you can, I think it's like 3D plus, I think is the the premium thing you can check out this film in. That's probably the coolest way that you can see the film. Or fortunately, overall, Gemini Man really just wasn't for me. The story itself, you can definitely tell why it was up on the shelf for 20 plus years and why it wasn't made back in the 90s. It's just a movie that's very basic and stale in its formula. It's very 90s, but in the worst ways. It has some really amazing, groundbreaking special effects work and some okay action set pieces that I think you'll get in some enjoyment out of. But overall, I really just can't really recommend this film to most people. But now that you've heard my thoughts on Gemini Man, make sure you let me know in the comment section down below. What did you think of the film if you check it out? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Let's get a discussion going in the comments. You know I like talking about all things movies here. Also, thank you so much for checking out my channel. If you enjoyed it, make sure you give it a like. Hit that subscribe button if you keep up with my movie reviews, cherry reactions, unboxings, and more. But until next time, I'll see you guys later.